Good morning. This video is intended to supplement chapters 46 through 49 of the Norton the Norton Field Guide to Writing, which is our course textbook for English 1301 and 1302. But today I'm going to talk about integrating sources into your writing. Again, the material in those chapters in the book is invaluable, and if you're in my class, which you should be if you're listening or watching this video, um, you are responsible for the material presented in those chapters. But I'm going to use this video to supplement that, as well as to supplement anything that I do in class with regard to integrating source material. So the first thing that comes to mind when talking about integrating source material is finding sources. One of the advantages that anyone who is a part of a university system has is going to be the vast amount of material that is literally at our fingertips through various databases that your university may subscribe to. In our case, Texas A&M San Antonio subscribes to many, and so we're going to take a look at navigating through some of that. So we're starting out here at our university website front page. I'm going to go ahead and actually log in. Okay. Alright, now let me see if I can find where University Library is here. I'm just going to go to student because that's what you all will, of course, be looking at. So scrolling down the page here, University Library is under academic support, right above Writing Center, which of course we all know that the Writing Center is one of our most valuable resources here, and I hope that you all are making use of it. In any case, let's click on University Library. Okay, so this is our University Library web page, and it's a fairly simple layout. In our case, this is a very good thing because it makes everything really easy to find. So if we go down to the middle of the page and we click on online databases, that's what I want to show you. So we'll click on online databases. So here we have our sort of intro page to online databases. I highly recommend that if at any point you have issues navigating the databases, finding the material you want to find, and so forth, you contact the Digital Resource Manager. She is more than qualified and more than willing to help you in your process. In fact, if you are researching a big project and you feel like you're going to need essential help, you could actually begin your research in the library itself and then call a librarian over to assist you as needed. Again, they are very much willing to help you. You'll notice across the top that there is an off-campus option. You can access these databases off-campus using your standard Tamusa login information. Okay, so this makes this system incredibly valuable. So you can look up databases by subject and so forth. I'm going to go ahead and streamline the process and go databases A to Z, because the one I want to show you is, for our purposes, a very nice sort of catch-all database. You are not going to find everything in this database. However, it's a good sort of starting spot for your primary research. I should say for your secondary research or primary. Anyway, good starting spot for your research. And it's Academic Search Complete. It's going to be this first one here. Okay, so let's click on this. And we want to go ahead, before we do anything else in this database, we want to go ahead and set some of these search options. Okay, so let's scroll a bit. We want full text, and for the sake of argument, we want scholarly or peer-reviewed. Now, scholarly or peer-reviewed, that's this button right here, and okay, this designation right here. You want to make sure that that's checked, and you want to make sure that full text is checked. So scholarly or peer-reviewed implies that there is a board of gatekeepers, right, for these publications. These gatekeepers, if you will, they are responsible for determining whether something that comes in to their journal for potential publication actually represents the conversation going on in that journal and represents the type of scholarship and the standard of scholarship that is applicable to that journal. Okay, sometimes stuff falls through the cracks and you're going to get some stuff that's not necessarily as high quality or as well vetted in these scholarly journals, but most of the time it's a fairly successful system, because these gatekeepers, if you will, this board that reviews everything for each publication, these are experts in that field, and they actually have a pretty high stake in what goes in to their journals, because it affects the quality of the discourse going on in the field at large. Okay, so you want to click that. All right. I would go ahead, and this is potentially going to limit your stuff a lot, but I'm going to go ahead and do PDF full text as well. What are some other ones? Languages. Now, some of you are fluent in Spanish, and that's fine if you want to look at stuff published in Spanish as well. Obviously, you know, if you do refer to something in a language other than English, you're going to probably have to provide some degree of translation or interpretation for your potential reader, right? But I'm just going to go ahead and click English, because it's gonna cull out a lot of stuff that me personally, when I'm doing research, I cannot read. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and cull out that. Now, I could check these up here. I'm going to leave these blank for now, and until I see what comes up. So another consideration here is publication date, because depending on what you might be researching will determine sort of how relevant something before a certain date might be. Okay, for instance, if you're looking at anything political, right, stuff published before 2016 is probably irrelevant unless you are doing background research on something, right? Because the 2016 election, for better or worse, was a game changer in the American political stage. So, everything written now, okay, within the last 2 years or so, is going to be referencing that. So you want to make sure that that's just an example of something that you want to make sure is you're dealing with the current stuff, if indeed you're writing or researching in those areas. Okay, but generally speaking, say we'll do say June 2016 to October 2018. And again, you can always go back and tweak this um, based on what you find. You can always go back in and redo um, your search criteria. Okay, so next thing to look at is your search topic, right? What is it that you want to search? So this can be exceptionally tricky. Students like to tell me, not like to, but they tend to tell me oftentimes, oh, I just can't find any material on such and such, right? Um, that is in almost 100% of the cases because that particular student is not using appropriate search terms, okay? And that's the kind of thing that I can troubleshoot with you. That's the kind of thing that a librarian can certainly troubleshoot with you. A lot of this, a lot of the success of this, and will depend upon, number one, what search terms you're using. Number two, which databases are most appropriate for what you were looking for. And for that, on our previous screen that we looked at, you had database by subject. That might be a place to look in terms of the databases most appropriate for what you are searching. Okay. I'm going to search one that, a number of students tend to be rather enthusiastic about. I'm even going to go well, we'll just do this one first. Okay. Click search. Okay, so I have 97 full text PDF articles uh, bit, within our search criteria. This is a lot. I mean, generally speaking, for the types of essays that you'll be doing in most of your classes, a good pool of resources might be 15 to 30. 97's 97's kind of large, okay? Um, there are ways to, of course, limit your searches further, okay? But let me just show you. I'll click on the first one, and there are ways that are sort of inherent in the way that in these listings, okay, that that will um, allow you to sort of narrow your field anyway. So let's just look. So you'll scroll down here and you see this abstract. Okay, the abstract is going to tell you what this article is about. Okay, the sort of the general thesis of the article. If you read the abstract, you can pretty much gather whether this particular article is going to be of any kind of import to you. Now, I do want to point some things out to you. Number one, here's the PDF full text. You can click on this and it's the full text of the article. You can also, if I go over here, I can click the Cite button. Now, this is rather nice. So, if you scroll down here, you've got your citation formats for works cited pages in alphabetical order. So if we scroll down, here's our APA of this particular article, complete with retrieved from, and it has the URL and so forth. And if we scroll down further, we've got our MLA, same thing. And so this is invaluable for us if we are needing the citation of the article, which if you are using it in any sort of piece here at SIMUSA, you're going to need the works cited citation for it. Now, if you'll note, there are a couple of things. Number one, if you look at your APA, oh yeah, actually they've changed it. Now it actually has the hanging indents. All right, so it's actually done correctly. You've got your hanging indent and so forth. This is an entirely correct citation on both counts, either APA or MLA or whatever these other citations are, Chicago Turabian, so on and so forth. So you would essentially copy that and you would put it in your works cited page for that particular document. Now, of course, you would still have to do in-text citation, and if you look in your book as well as some other resources that we'll talk about, it gives you sort of how to do that. Actually, gives you explicitly how to do that in your book. Again, chapters 46 to about 49 is going to cover this material in depth. And then, of course, your book gives both style guides for MLA and APA. A lot of students want to know, what style is appropriate, particularly in the FYC program, the first year composition program. The answer is that it depends entirely upon your audience. Okay, if you are writing, say, for a professional audience who is conducive to or used to MLA, then that's the style that you use consistently and throughout the document. If you are writing to an APA suited audience, right, then you use APA, and that is up to you to figure out. One is not better than the other. It depends upon the audience. Okay. So other things I want to show you that we have here. You could send this to your Google Drive. Okay. You can have an email. You can have it sent to you as email. And in the email, you can actually send, it'll actually send you the citation format as well. So, but just make sure that the citation format you want is clicked, okay, right? And make sure the PDF is clicked and so on and so forth. And what it does is it emails you a link to this particular article, and you can then go in and retrieve the article. If we go back to the previous field, okay, another innovation that they've added is Save PDF to Cloud. So you can actually choose to save to any of these clouds, right? To Dropbox, to OneDrive. All of you as SIMUSA students have a OneDrive account that comes with your Microsoft Office that you should, if you haven't done so already, download through Outlook. Okay. Um, but if you've got your Microsoft 365 set up, you have a OneDrive, so you can do that. Again, if you send the PDF to the OneDrive, it does not reproduce the citation material for you. You've got to make sure that you've already um, copied that, okay, or that you plan on going about it yourself. Okay. Um, we can narrow this down further. So if I wanted to do that, I might try Texas. Okay, and see that is a bit narrow um, because that leaves me only with two. Now I may, but one of these titles gives me an idea. I could change this to and as you know, my spelling is atrocious. Change this to recreational and see what we get. Okay, see now that's more reasonable. Okay, um, and this would probably give you a fair amount of stuff to research because in most of your essays, if you start out with a pool of say 25 sources, right? 25 scholarly sources at that, because remember we've already clicked scholarly and peer reviewed, so we know that that's already a culling process that's going on. Okay, we know that they're within the last 2 years, and so on and so forth. So we've already got those limiters set. We still end up with 25 articles. That's a good sample. Okay, at least for the type of papers that you'll be doing, say in English 1302. If you're looking for background information to sort of bolster your profile project in English 1301, that's more than enough, right? So that's a good sample. So that sort of gives you um, an idea of how the databases work in general. So the question then becomes, once one has found sources, how does one then integrate them into an essay? Well, okay, because everyone has seen, either in sort of our previous experiences with writing, or you know, in class or in other classes, or even certainly in online forums and so on and so forth, we've seen poor ways that text has been integrated, right? But what does well integrated text look like? So I'm going to show you an example, and this example is integrating literary text. It's dealing with integration and explication of literary text. Some of you will not do that, or some of you will only do that in your literature classes. But the same principles apply, okay, when integrating texts of different types of essays. But again, I cannot emphasize enough as far as your baseline knowledge and your workable skill set, reading chapters 46 to 49 in the Norton Field Guide to Writing. These are very well done chapters, very concise, and they give you sort of a working knowledge of, of what you need to successfully begin to integrate sources and to refine those skills. But having said that, I'm going to show you an example, okay? So in this particular document, and I'm just going to read through it, this is an example integrating quoted text into an essay. Okay, so as we've mentioned in class, as I've mentioned in class at least a few times up to this point, there are three primary means of integrating source material into your writing. The most general, okay, is summary. That is, you're just sort of broad stroke explaining, what is contained within a piece, what the evidence states, etc. Broadly speaking, the uh, the next is paraphrase. Paraphrase is a little tricky. It involves restating what someone has said in your own words, and it really does. If you're going to paraphrase, it really does need to be in your own words. You can't change, say, 3 words in a statement and call it paraphrase. Okay, that borders on plagiarism. Okay, so if you're going to paraphrase, and paraphrase is more specific than summary, if you're going to paraphrase an essential idea from somebody else's work, you need to make sure that you are in fact restating it in your own words. What I'm going to talk about here is direct quotation, because direct quotation is probably the trickiest. So as I've said in class, actually this piece here reiterates a lot of what I've said in class about direct quotation. So I'm just going to read it to you. You can read along on your screen as I do. So, quoting from primary and secondary sources. Most inexperienced writers have a tendency to want to quote large portions of text, but in the essays as brief as the ones we are writing here, not only is this not practical to a certain degree, it's a cop-out. Quote only the specific language in the text that best supports your ideas. Conform the syntax of the quote to the syntax of your sentence. Side note, that means punctuate the quote according to the punctuation of your sentence. To do this, use ellipses to indicate omitted text, and use brackets to indicate text that you've added either for emphasis or to adjust the syntax. Syntax, side note, is word order, right? Or word conjugation, so on and so forth. Consider the following example. Note that in the example, I both introduce the quote and explicate or explain the quote using the language of the quote itself. Okay, that piece there is essentially important. You have got to introduce your quote. In other words, give your quote a context. Use running acknowledgement and signal phrasing. Okay? Let your reader know who's saying what. Okay? And in many cases, what if it's a more analytical essay, what authority does that person have, right? Introduce that, acknowledge that person. That's a running acknowledgement of who the person is and what they're doing, so on and so forth. A signal phrase is a word or a phrase that signals the reader that a quote is about to happen, right? So, and in this particular, the context of this particular short paragraph is related to the novel Secret Life of Bees. Some of you may have seen the film with Queen Latifah. The novel is much better, but anyway. No deference to Queen Latifah. Anyway, Throughout most of the novel, Lily frames August as the queen bee. When they visit Zack in jail, she comments. Side note, comments in this case is a signal phrase because it's signaling the beginning of a quotation. It, the fire in August dies, was a hearth fire you could depend on. Side note, see how I put fire in August dies within the brackets? That is text that I added in for clarification. The brackets indicate that that's text that I added in. That was not in the original quote. Or you could draw upon to get warm by if you were cold or cooked something on. That would feed the emptiness in you. So these ellipses here, the 3 dots, indicate that I've omitted text. The 4th dot is in fact a period. Okay, so actually it goes period, ellipsis, and then continues the statement. All we had was the wet fire in August dies, but it was enough. Okay, and then this here is our MLA style in-text citation. The reason that I'm using MLA here is because it's a literary essay, and MLA is still standard for literary essays. Now, what happens next is essentially important. I am going to explain the relationship between what I've quoted, okay, and what I'm trying to accomplish, what I'm trying to, my subject matter, right? So we as authors, right, and I've said this in class before, and I will undoubtedly say it again, but we as authors um, are able to be creative, are able to express ourselves, express our uniqueness, if you will, regardless of the type of essay that we're writing. It could be the most analytical essay in the world, okay? But we can still express our uniqueness, our essence, through the explanation of how the evidence that we're using relates to what we are talking about, okay? So in this case, the evidence that I'm using is the quotation from the novel, okay? Now, I can't just quote from the novel and leave it at that. If I were to do that, that quote would essentially be useless, right? Because I haven't talked about the significance of it. I haven't talked about what it means. I haven't talked about the why, right? And the principal question, the principal academic question is why? Why? Like a 2-year-old, right? Why? That's the essential academic question. So I have to, the onus is on me then to explain what I am saying, the meaning, the importance, the why I should care, or why the reader should care about what I've said. So I follow up that quotation with an explanation. I cannot move on to my next consideration, right, until I do that. So, in terms of archetypes, the hearth is intrinsically related to motherhood. It is the locus of nurturing and safety. Lily equates this hearth fire with grounding because the fire affects the chemical change, just as August is affecting the change within Lily. August's eyes are mirrors through which Lily spies Mary within August. That has yet to awaken within herself. Okay, so I've explained the meaning, the heft, if you will, behind what I've quoted, okay, as it relates to my assertion that August is the queen bee, right? That Lily believes or frames August as the queen bee. I've explained that particular quote in that context, okay? That's what you've got to do, regardless of the type of essay that you're writing when you are quoting material, right? You must explain the significance of that quoted material in the context of what you're talking about, okay? And I'm not asking anybody to write this floridly, right? I'm not asking anybody to write in this literary style necessarily. You're not necessarily writing those types of essays, and even if you are writing a literary essay for a literature class, you you may not have yet achieved the skill set to do that, or maybe you have. Maybe you can write better than I can, which is fantastic. But the point is that the general um, um, call, right, to to the development of your skills and the application of your skills is basically the same. So try to glean as much as you can from each quote. And as I said, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of explicating or explaining the quote. Make sure you address specifically how the quote supports your argument. Quotes of up to 3 lines length may be integrated into the sentence in the example above. Quotes of 4 or more lines should be set off from the parent sentence by skipping a line before and after the quote. These block quotes do not need quotation marks, and the parenthetical notation should follow the last period rather than be included in the last sentence before the period. Again, um, I refer you to the Norton Field Guide to Writing, um, those chapters, 39 to, so what did I say? Uh, 36 to 39 in the book. Um, and then the style guides, the MLA or APA style guides, depending on where you are going and what you're using and who your audience is, etc. The Purdue Writing Center has some useful resources with regard to MLA and APA as well, and I'll probably produce an additional video on that. If you've never seen the Purdue Writing Lab website, this is it, Purdue OWL. It is voluminous as far as the material available here. It is probably the best freely available resource, the most authoritative, freely available resource on college level writing out there. Okay, I highly encourage you to familiarize yourself with the site. But that is pretty much all I wanted to say as far as this video is concerned on finding and integrating sources. Again, I can't emphasize enough the chapters in the Norton Field Guide to Writing. Between the chapters of the Norton Field Guide to Writing, this video, and any kind of questions you ask in class or anything we discuss in class, I think you'll have a fair understanding to at least begin to feel comfortable with integrating quotations and integrating secondary material. Okay, thank you very much.